Does Utah have the best football program in the Big 12? Spoiler alert, they do, and they should be the top destination for recruits. We're diving into why on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you again for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. If you're interested in a second listen, you can check out Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Football. As we got media days going on, there's a lot of noise and news going on across the sport we love so much. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. It's all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by UteZone's Dante, Guardi. We're going to do some fun Utes in the NFL, really talk about Dalton Kincaid. I think he's got a chance to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL and talk about some of the other best Utes in the NFL. But first, I want to just talk about how good of a spot I think this Utah football program is in. When I say they're the best football program in the Big 12, I didn't stutter for a reason. I think this is genuinely the best football program in the Big 12. Anytime you make a claim like that, of course, Dante, I have to back that up with some numbers, which is what I'm so happy to do right now. For starters, Utah had won back-to-back conference championships, and they've won two in the last 3 years. Let's stretch that to 7 years overall, because that would coincide with when the Big 12 first brought back their conference championship game. Of current members in the Big 12 over the 7 years of the conference championship, only 2 members, it was Kansas State and it was Baylor, won a Big 12 conference championship. Oklahoma, as much as everyone hates Lincoln Riley, he dominated in the Big 12 for a while. They won a ton of them, and then Texas won the one most recently. So it's crazy to think that Utah, with their 2 conference championships, has more recent conference championships than any member of the Big 12, and even if you combine them together. So that's number one. How about Utah has not had a losing season in the college football playoff era. They have also made more appearances than any other Big 12 program in the CFP rankings, which with 44, which is tied for 8th nationally. Utah is also a top 15 amongst Power 5 college football programs in wins. Now, Oklahoma State is slightly ahead of Utah. Utah 86, Oklahoma State 89. But I'll take 3 less wins and 2 more conference championships. So I think that's where it evens itself out there. How good is Utah at home too? Utah's exceptional. 33-4 at home since 2018, with just one of those losses coming in the last 3 years where they didn't have Cam Rising either. And last but certainly not least, this is especially for the recruits of why Utah's the best destination. Utah is the best school in the Big 12 at developing and putting guys into the NFL. They have 29 players in the NFL, which ranks 29th nationally, but most importantly, first in the Big 12. This is the best football program currently in the Big 12, and it does the best at putting recruits into the NFL.
Most definitely. And you take a look back at some of the other Utah teams too, like in a quote unquote down year for Utah, like even last year, you still had elite talent on the field who were homegrown players essentially, and were developed by the Utah coaching staff and ended up being a draft pick, even in a year that Utah wasn't as dominant as they had been. Perhaps when they won the conference championship would be a good example to compare that to. And also like 2016, Utah went, I think 9-4, 8-5, something along those lines. And they still had like 8 or 9 players drafted during that season, many of which are still in the NFL today and producing. So Utah's consistently putting guys into the league. And that's obviously what you want to be doing at the end of the day. It's what draws recruits in to your program. And to your point about the Utah winning multiple conference championships, winning a conference championship is not an easy thing to do. You know, it kind of takes a perfect storm for it to happen, no matter which conference you're playing in. I mean, take the Pac-12, for example. There's 12 teams in it. When you take a look at it literally, that means you have less than a 10% chance to win the conference. You know, when there's 12 other, parties vying for the exact same thing that you're also vying for, I mean, it's competitive and it's tough, and it takes a lot. It takes already talented team. It takes a good coaching staff, and it takes a little bit of luck as well, or a little bit of depth, if you will, based on players just not getting injured and being able to sustain a high level of play by not having guys get injured or having guys step up if there are to be injuries. Because at the end of the day, I mean, college football, one of the reasons why we love it is that it's unpredictable, and that's part of the game. And a lot of these great storylines that we see emerge are from a player getting injured and his backup coming in and kind of stealing the spotlight, if you will, in some cases, and it works out in favor of a lot of teams. That one season, Kansas State, they won the Big 12. I think it was not this past season, but the year before that.
Correct.
Will Howard at quarterback, who was a backup. Adrian Martinez was the guy who started for them the majority of the games early on, and he had some injury issues. Will Howard came in and carried the load and carried Kansas State to a win in the Big 12 championship game, which was awfully impressive. So, like I said, man, winning a conference championship is not easy, and the fact that Utah was able to do it a couple times is awfully impressive, especially when you take into account that this was a team that was in the Mountain West a little bit over a decade ago. So to make some significant strides in such a short period of time, when you're going up against the likes of big name schools, Utah didn't have anywhere near as much money as they have now when they first joined the Pac-12, and they were still competing with the likes of USC, Oregon, UCLA. I mean, Stanford was really good at the beginning of the last decade, so they were competing with them as well. And slowly but surely worked their way up to accomplish some pretty impressive feats, and they'll look to do something similar in the Big 12. And I think as long as the coaching staff keeps on doing what they're doing, they'll find similar success.
Love that you mentioned the coaching staff. Want to get to them in 1 second. I loved also that you brought up USC and Oregon. Those are the schools that were supposed to win the conference championships. And yes, Washington broke through and won it last year. Oregon's been close, and they did win it back in 2019. But Utah still got two amidst when those schools were supposed to be year in and year out dominating and winning conference, because those were the premier brands. Oklahoma is the premier brand in the Big 12, and those other schools in the Big 12 that are currently still there, they could not get over the hump and beat that Oklahoma program. They couldn't dethrone them. And we saw Texas make their way and get back up there too. So the fact that Utah was able to beat those teams, and I know people love to be like, oh, Pac-12 teams, those Oregon and USC teams, the USC thing drives me nuts a little bit. And I know Lincoln Riley last year was a disappointment. They beat that Utah team during the college football playoff. The tune changes a lot quicker than about everything there. Like, Utah is literally the reason that the world gets to dump on Lincoln Riley. If it wasn't for that Utah team beating USC, then they get into the college football playoff. So, and same thing with Utah beating that Oregon team. That was a top 4 team when they came into Rice-Eccles Stadium. Beat them not once, but twice. So Utah been able to beat the premier programs in their conference, whereas the Big 12 teams have not done that consistently. You mentioned last year being a down year for Utah, but like you mentioned too, they put guys in the NFL still. 5 players drafted in the NFL: Cole Bishop, Sione Vaki, and Joan Ellis. None of those guys, when they stepped on campus at Utah, was a recruiting analyst like that guy right there. In 3 years, he's going to go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. And all 3 of those guys I mentioned did that, in part because of the job Utah did identifying their talents and helping them grow into the players that they can be. And continuing with this as well about like why Utah is the best destination. So if you're a college recruit, to me, Utah's the perfect storm because they offer you a chance to play. Clark Phillips, anyone, you look at Spencer Fano last year. If you're a high recruit, you can come in and you'll have a chance to start and play right away. Because anyone that finds a school, you for sure want to play. Also, how about you want to win? Just gave you all those Utah winning statistics, specifically the conference championships, 2 of those. I think those are pretty good. And put yourself in the best position to go to the NFL. 29 current players in the NFL. When these guys are looking at who's the best Big 12 school, if I want to win, play, and get my skill developed, Utah checks all 3 of those boxes. And sometimes people get nervous about that success because, the school's been so good. Are some of the coaches going to leave? Not at Utah. This staff stays intact like no other. Yes, Kyle Whittingham very soon is going to retire, but Morgan Scalley is going to keep the same culture in place. And I expect all the same coaches to stay on staff too. So the continuity that Utah has is also a huge thing because when you're committing to Utah, the coaches you commit to are absolutely going to stay, which is a huge part of this conversation. And I want to keep it going, and Dante, and give you a chance to respond to what I said. But as well as we got to talk about these Utes in the NFL. It's a lot to get to on today's Locked On Utes. But first, we have to tell you about the sponsor of today's episode of Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at Gametime. The MLB All-Star break is finally concluded, and now it's time to get your tickets and head to the ballpark. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They have fantastic last-minute deals, all-in price views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime truly takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can save up to 60% off with last-minute deals when you're buying tickets for not just sports, but how about concerts, comedy, theater events? Everything is available on Gametime. How about those flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event? Or want something even better? A zone deal. Save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats for you. How about the seat view? You get a panoramic view from your seat, and you get that low price guarantee where Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You can take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, capital LO and all of college for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dante, I was ranting some more about why Utah's the best in the Big 12, talking about the NFL guys from last year, their recruiting, and all of that coming together to make Utah the best destination in the Big 12. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that conversation?
A little bit, going back to the point we were making about conference championships, one could also argue that Utah's best team didn't even win a conference championship. I mean, we were talking about teams being a win away from the college football playoff. Utah in 2019 was a win away from the college football playoff. They did get trounced by Oregon, but I mean, that's life. You know, when things come down to a 60-minute game, they're a little bit more up in the air. You know, if Utah had gone into that game undefeated, who knows? They might have made the playoffs anyways.
Injuries too. Julian Blackmon, Jaylon Johnson. I think Jaylon Johnson got hurt in that one too.
Julian Blackmon, man, it was tough because he made an awesome play. Like Oregon's first play from scrimmage, Julian Blackmon broke it up and he got up all hyped, and it was sweet, man. It was a moment that definitely gave Utah some momentum early on, and then next thing you know, he goes down, and it was all downhill from there. But I mean, it happens. But like I was saying, that was Utah's best team, and they arguably Utah's best team, and they didn't even win the conference championship. So Utah was still able to win 2 in that short period, despite their best team not winning one. You could very easily say they could have won 3. I mean, obviously they lost that game, but I mean, Utah has put together a very impressive resume throughout their time in the Pac-12, and for someone to think that it's not going to translate to the Big 12, I think is a little bit concerning, because there aren't really any factors that don't include like inherent bias that would lead someone to believe that Utah would struggle early on in the Big 12. You know, everything's pointing in the right direction. The recruiting has only gotten better, as you mentioned. The continuity of the coaching staff seems to be something that Utah can continue to pride itself upon. Obviously, you never know. Each coaching cycle is completely different than the next. You never know what's going to happen. But as of right now, it seems like Utah is about the best in the nation at keeping their staff intact. And that's something that, like we've both said, they'll be able to pride themselves upon when it comes to recruiting and drawing in the best players. And as we've hinted at, or as we've alluded to, Utah has seen significant improvements in regard to their recruiting classes. You just take a look at, like, if you were to take the median of like the last 5 years and compare that to the 5 years before that, I'd take a guess and say Utah's like 10 spots higher than they would be during the more recent period of time. So yeah, man, I mean, Utah is the best destination for a player in the Big 12 region, you know, because the Big 12 is interesting too, because I mean, it gives you it gives you still a significant amount of exposure, but like you said, the opportunity to see more playing time, because going to an SEC school, going to a Big 10 school might be a little bit more competitive, and you won't be able to play as much early on. Whereas in the Big 12, you're still getting a lot of exposure. I mean, the games are still going to be highly watched, because they're going to be between relatively highly ranked teams. So it gives players an opportunity to get on the field right away and really showcase their abilities.
And and if you get on the field, showcase your abilities, have success, you'll have a chance to face off against that SEC and Big 10 team. And look, you won't be favored in the game, but it's one game. and then you have to beat them, and then you can go on to the next round of the playoff and have an opportunity to win a conference, win it all. And that's just what you put yourself in position to when you win the conference, which is what Utah has a chance to do this fall because of how well they've done developing NFL talent. And let's talk about some pro Utes. We're waiting on fall camp to get underway, as the time we're recording this is just a little over a week away at this point, which is really exciting. And NFL training camp's underway. And when you talk about pro Utes, I think there's a guy, Dante, who's going to emerge as the face of Utah in the NFL. And I think it's Dalton Kincaid. And I think he's set to have a monster year two with the Buffalo Bills. Last year, he was 10th in receiving yards amongst tight ends with 673. Pretty good for a rookie. Only 2 touchdowns, though, and never had a 100-yard receiving game. So still ways to improve. But 673 yards. Like, that's, I think about, like, for some of you Steeler fans, you might remember like Pat Fryermuth. Like, he's a solid tight end. He had under 400 receiving yards. Dalton, as a rookie, had nearly 700. So that shows you what a good rookie year he already had. And he's still growing as a route runner and just in general, all the ways he's still developing his game, right? So Dalton is a guy to me that I think is going to have a monster year too. But unfortunately, to answer the question, do I think he's going to be a top 5 tight end? I think he's actually just going to miss out. And it's not his fault. It's because of how good the tight end position is. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta. I think there's a chance he cracks in top 5 yardage wise, because I think him and Kyle Pitts are both going to have like monster yardage wise seasons. And we saw injuries last year. Hawkinson's going to be plagued with one. Laporta, Andrews, all these guys do get banged up a little bit. So I think he's going to have a chance to crack the top 5, but I think he'll just miss out. But he will be one of the 10 best tight ends in college, in the NFL, legitimately. And I think when you think of Utes in the NFL, the first guy you think of after this year will be Dalton Kincaid, because he's going to have a huge season, be a breakout player, and be a star in the National Football League.
And when you think of rookie tight ends in the NFL, the associated word is usually flop. Most of the times they don't live up to their billing. We saw what happened with the whole Kyle Pitts thing a few years ago when he was supposed to be this great rookie tight end. And I mean, he was still solid. And Kyle Pitts, obviously, you can't deny that he's an immensely talented player. Nonetheless, his rookie season was a bit disappointing. And that tends to happen to a lot of these tight ends who were incredible in college, but are struggling to make that transition to the NFL. And that didn't really happen for Dalton Kincaid. And what made it even more impressive was the presence of an already proven tight end in the locker room in Dawson Knox, So having him there and still seeing Kincaid showcase his abilities at a high level it is very impressive for a rookie tight end, all things considered. And when you take into account, like you said, Gabe Davis not being there anymore, Stephon Diggs not being there anymore, the opportunities just become so much more wide open. And they, like we said, they have an elite quarterback running the show over there. So the opportunities will be there for Dalton Kincaid to succeed. And I mean, this is a player that when you take a look at his time at Utah, he shined when the lights were the brightest. You take a look back at that USC game that he had. He showcased just about every ability a GM looks for in an NFL tight end. I mean, he was doing it at all 3 levels of the field. He was making guys miss in the open field. He was making acrobatic catches on the sidelines, as well as scoring and just being a reliable target. And you take a look back at his rookie year in Buffalo, and he was the definition of a reliable target. I mean, I think he caught over 90% of the passes thrown his way, if I'm not mistaken. It was an incredibly high number. And for the first few weeks that he was seeing significant playing time, it was an even higher number. Obviously it's hard to sustain like a super elite level of play, such as 100% of your targets being caught. So that number was bound to dwindle a little bit, but it really didn't dwindle very much. And I mean, Kincaid proved that he will be a reliable target for Josh Allen going forward. I think he's in line for a huge season. All the signs are pointing to that, and it would take something funky to happen for Kincaid not to meet all the high expectations people are putting upon him this upcoming season.
Feels like it's going to be one of the breakout players in the league, become one of the faces up and coming wise for the tight end position, and can't wait to see him have a monster year. And now I want to take turns drafting the other top Utah football players, because there's 29 of them. So there's a lot of them. So we're going to have to go quick. We'll take turns alternating, talking about our top guys, drafting them back and forth. And while I think Dalton will be the most famous Utah football player in the NFL, Dante, I think the guy you're about to take number 1 is probably the best Ute in the NFL right now.
Yeah, Jaylon Johnson most definitely is, and evidenced by the massive contract that he recently signed with the Chicago Bears, who locked him in for I think 4 years, I believe it was, making him one of the key pieces of their defense going forward, and obviously making him one of the guys that they want to build their entire franchise around. That being one of the NFL franchises that is in a rebuild, to put it simply, and to be nice. I mean, we've seen what the Bears have been over the last few years, and it's good to see them put a little bit more effort into their rebuild. Whereas in the past few years, we've kind of seen them um, just kind of going through the motions rather than putting their foot on the gas and trying to get something special to happen on Soldier Field, which obviously is lacked over the past few years. They signed Caleb Williams, signed Keenan Allen, and Lockdown Johnson. So I mean, they're making strides. But yeah, man, Johnson has really taken some significant strides as an NFL corner. I mean, this is a corner that has all the tools you could ask for. 6'1", good speed, good in man. Obviously, if you're a cornerback at Utah, you have to be good at man coverage. That's their bread and butter. So that's something that has historically translated really well when you see Utah guys go to the NFL. I mean, Eric Rowe is a good example of that. He's a guy who's played all over like secondaries. He's kind of a journeyman player. Played for the Patriots, played for the Eagles, played for the Steelers, Dolphins. I mean, he played for a bunch of teams, and he's been in the league for I think a little bit more than 10 years now. And he's played corner and safety. But I mean, he's very fast and very good in man coverage, which has allowed him to stay on teams throughout his career. And Johnson fits that billing as well. He's a very flexible player. He can guard just about anyone you throw at him. And I mean, he's had some elite performances against some of the game's best receivers. So that contract extension that he earned was rightfully earned. And I think this is going to be a big year for him, wanting to prove to the fans and to the city of Chicago and the administration and whatnot that he was worthy of that type of extension.
I agree. And honestly, Dante, speaking of worthy, there's a lot of other Utes in the NFL that are worthy of discussion. And I don't want to give them just a quick little highlight and a mention. So I think what we're going to do is we talked about the two best Utes in the NFL, and I think we're going to stick with that. And then over the next few weeks on Locked On Utes, I'm going to talk about some of the other best guys who are out there. But I'll give you the last word, Dante. Give me the next 2 or 3 guys you would have said are the next best Utes in the NFL real quick.
The next one I would have said was Marcus Williams. I mean, he too
Same.
had he too had a pretty healthy contract extension awarded to him. Not like within the same time as Jaylon Johnson, but a little bit older. But nonetheless, he still hasn't really like proven his ability. I mean, he just a little bit of injury troubles over the past couple of years that have kept him sidelined. And the contract that he got was massive. It made him one of the highest paid safeties in the league, and rightfully so, because he was elite on the Saints. He was elite. And this is a guy that really embodies what Utah's coaching staff preaches on the defensive side of the ball, especially for the secondary, that being like RSMB, relentless, smart, nasty ball hawks. There was a play that he made. I forgot what year it was, but it was against Arizona, and receiver was running like a post over the middle, and Chase Hansen, the other safety at the time, just cracked the guy coming over the middle. And then like the hit on its own was crazy. Like it got reviewed for targeting, but it wasn't. But then the ball rolled off of the receiver's back, I think, and Williams dove and caught it with one hand off the receiver's body, like when he was inches from the ground. It was just a really impressive play, and that embodied the type of player that he was at Utah and in the NFL. I mean, his sideline to sideline speed is almost unmatched, and he's a very long player as well. So I mean, he's good to go up in the air and snag one at the high point, and that also allows him to go up against some of the bigger receivers in the NFL. Doesn't really have a disadvantage going up for 50-50 balls, whether it be in the red zone or in the open field. So Marcus Williams is a great all-around player, and I'm excited to see what he can do for Baltimore in a fully healthy season, because he's truly one of the best safeties in the league.
I am too. I think he's a monster. And as I said, there are a lot of other guys we want to cover, and we'd go for an hour if we wanted to dive into the rest of them. So we're going to talk about more of those guys on next week's show. Dante, appreciate you stopping by. Where can people read more of your work?
UteZone.com. I'm not up in Utah right now. I'm back home in California for the summer, so not a whole lot happening. But when we get closer to the season, I'll be back at it with like 3 keys to victory for Utah, Utes in the NFL updates, as well as like interviews here and there. So a lot of good stuff over on UteZone, and always feel free to come check it out and support.
Awesome. Dante, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, JT.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. The next time you all hear this voice and listen to an episode of Locked On Utes will be on Monday, when it is officially a week away from fall camp. We have almost made it to the start of college football season. We cannot wait to continue to cover it all season long on Locked On Utes. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Only got a few more free ones till we're spending our Saturdays cheering on the Utes inside Rice-Eccles Stadium. I can't wait for that day. I know all of you can't either. Thank you again for listening to the show. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you all on next week's Locked On Utes.